Now, if studying academic psychology is reading about the characteristics of water, then studying yourself is jumping in. The difference is water. When you begin to form this habit of asking these questions, you begin to receive deep answers. You begin to tune into your life rather than tuning out of it, because too many people tune out of their lives. Before I begin this video, I just want to make a quick shout out to myself. First and foremost, always shout yourself out first. I'm building this website and this newsletter, and I want to share ideas about how to use philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and fitness to build a self-fulfilling life. So if you're interested in that, please consider checking out my website and maybe even signing up for my mailing list. I would really appreciate you, and let's journey on, friend. Most people follow someone else's idea of how to live a life that's not even their own. People don't realize the amount of self-power that they hold and just how much of it that they give away. Now, this video explores the idea of creating an easily successful life by embracing our own autonomy and forging our own paths rather than simply studying success by imitating others unconsciously. The only way to step away from being a follower of the status quo is to step into the role of leading your own life. To do this, you simply have to become the lead designer. And that requires you to stop giving away your power. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with one-swipe dopamine hits, marketing and fitness gurus, get-rich-quick schemes, fitness supermodel bodies, and bimbified images of success, it's pretty easy to fall into this trap of comparing our measly lives and feeling inadequate. Now, the problem with how most of us live our lives nowadays is that we offload and completely give away our own autonomy in almost every way. Now, responsibility for the food that we eat is offloaded into the hands of megacorps and food production lines, where most foods are manufactured products from an assembly line. Just visit your nearest McDonald's or Walmart. Responsibility for educating our minds is offloaded into the hands of outdated institutions, overpricing students for a textbook education supported by PowerPoint slides that for some reason you still have to show up in person for. Now, responsibility for taking care of our own bodies is offloaded into the hands of sickness treatment specialists in fancy white suits, doubling as pharmaceutical sales reps, legally dealing you drugs. Are you depressed? Anxious? Here, have some antidepressants. When the pills don't work, we can cut you open for cutting-edge surgery instead. Cut out your stomach, install some new metal bolts, no problem. We got it all. Surely implanting silicone into your butt and forearm flap phalloplasty, look that up at your own risk, is medicinal. Now, even for the minority of people, less than 20%, who are actually trying to take control of their health, get rich and get fit quick predators and gurus roam the fields and scour to take advantage of the mass insecurity and self-dissatisfaction of the people who are at least self-aware enough to want to change. So we're so completely disconnected from our own lives because everything we look to solve our problems with, it fundamentally disempowers us at both the psychological and the structural level. Now, do you really need a sickness treatment specialist to prescribe you mind-numbing pills when you could easily prevent sickness in the first place by taking proper care of your physical and psychological health? Now, the problem is that most people don't even think that this is possible. Right? Do you really need to pay $10,000 per year to memorize PowerPoint slides about content you could care less about, to circle boxes on a test so you can attain a pleasing number on a transcript, only to forget everything 2 weeks later? All of this just to validate your self-worth and intelligence? Do you actually even want the job you're supposedly doing the degree for? Now, again, the problem is that most people don't even think that there's an alternative to this and that anything else is possible, right? Do you really need to spend 1/3 of your life, that's 90,000 hours, dwelling in a cubicle, pretending like This is exactly what you're put in this life to do. And do you really need to wake up every morning and pretend like you give a fuck about all the things that you don't give a flying fuck about? All right? Such a fucking headache. Modern life is so easy that we have no real struggle to give us any sense of purpose or meaning. We're expected to conform to an image of settling for some kind of career that none of us actually want. This makes it safe to go to university, right? I jokingly call it the existential buffer institution because most of us are going to pay rape institution just to use university as a 4 to 5 year buffer against the terrible existential dread of not actually knowing what we want out of life, And who could blame us when this sick idea of a fulfilling life is drilled into us as teenagers? This idea of somehow being fulfilled by a 9 to 5. Now, as a result of still not knowing what we want, the easiest choice is to just settle for a little cozy office job after we graduate, right? It's easy to stay sedentary. There's no need to move when the car, the elevator, the drive-through, and the delivery driver are right at your service every single day. People used to struggle to find food and shelter, but we struggle from being too fed and too sheltered now. Now, once you start to question everything about how unconsciously and how unhealthily the mainstream lifestyle is, you quickly realize just how absurd the norm is, right? No real purpose, no real challenge, no real fulfillment, just coasting along, waiting for the next pizza slice, TV show, and next 2-week vacation to provide relief from the pains of such an inherently unfulfilling life. Now, they say that ignorance is bliss, and sometimes you might just wish you were happy to be unhappy because you wouldn't even be aware of your unhappiness, right? But once you start to realize just how absurd the norm is, there's really no going back. But this is the great news, right? It's just a simple realization that this simple realization of kind of waking up to all of this nonsense already expands you further than 80% of people will ever go. Now, scientists, are vigorously researching why everyone has obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and why anxiety and depression rates are skyrocketing despite the tremendous advancements in our technology, our wealth, and our ease of life, right? But if you simply look at the way that we're currently living, is it really such a baffling mystery? Then we go and try to treat these surface symptoms of these chronic man-made problems with pills and surgeries. We've really outdone ourselves on this one. And so the only sane solution to all of this at this point is to take back our own control, right? Krishnamurti once said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And it's this lack of voluntary stress in your life, exercise, intellectual stimulation, having a purpose to provide you challenge and growth. This lack of voluntary stress is proportional to the amount of involuntary stress that will knock on your door. So things like obesity, anxiety, meaninglessness, and dis-ease, right? Dis-ease. It's this we're caught in this accumulation of so much dis-ease in our lives simply because we have no purpose and no challenge to take on anymore, right? But we also have to realize that it's not so gloomy, right? This lack of voluntary stress only results from a lack of intention in your life. Now let me explain this. most people coast along life because they haven't developed this simple skill of asking questions. Now, when you begin to ask questions, you begin seeking answers. As the questions get deeper, so do the answers that come into your life, right? When you form this habit of asking deep questions, of these existential questions of like, why do I do this? What is this all for? It's like, why do I bother going to do this and do that versus, you know, choosing the other path, right? Why do I bother going to school? Why do I bother going down this path to get a job, right? You begin asking these questions about every, you know, decision you make about life rather than just coasting into them. And when you begin to form this habit of asking these questions, you begin to receive deep answers, because as your questions get deeper, the answers get deeper, and you begin to tune into your life rather than tuning out of it, because too many people tune out of their lives. And you begin to develop this understanding of what it is that you truly want and what you don't want, right? Deep, deep, deep down. And when you can envision what you truly want, then you already have formed an intention, right? The simple intention to head down a direction of living life on your own terms is that nuclear fuel that's intrinsically going to drive you to be better, to be stronger, to be faster each and every day. And you just simply need an intention for what you want out of life. And to do this, you have to ask questions, right? But once you start asking questions and once you have an intention for what you want out of life, that means you get to define it. Now, keep in mind that there's no order for what you should develop first, as I'm going to get into the 3 things you should develop in order to develop an intention for your life. But I'm only saying these 3 points in numbered order for the sake of, flowing, right? What feels most urgently needed for you at this point of your life, that's something only you know, right? It could be one of these things, it could be multiple, it could be all of them, right? But let's start with number 1. This is your psychology degree, right? And I'm saying this because understanding human psychology is probably one of the most important skills that you can have, because this transfers over to every other domain of your life. Now, the mistake in attaining a psychology degree, as we're going to put it, is looking outward to learn psychology, right? So studying textbooks and academic courses and empty theories, when the only true way you can develop insight into human psychology is to go inward and examine your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own beliefs, right? Let me give you an analogy. The mind is like water, right? Studying academic psychology is like studying the characteristics of water. You could say it's liquid. It makes things wet. It can be gas. It's also solid sometimes. Sometimes it's brown, green, or blue, but in its purest form, it's clear, right? Water allows life to exist, but water also can kill, right? So I've said all of these things about water. I've described its characteristics, and I can even spend 20 years studying, let's call it the physics of human body movement in water. I can develop world-renowned theories, concepts, formulas. I'm an expert in this field of the physics of underwater body control, right? And when you think about it, it's just a fancy word to say swimming. But if I've never gone to the pool, then what the fuck do you think is going to happen when I jump into the goddamn lake? Now, theories will give you a way to articulate a particular aspect of psychology, but if you don't understand it from a deeply inward level, then psychology just becomes mental masturbation to flex empty knowledge that you don't actually have, right? Knowledge isn't wisdom. And so psychology is best by studying yourself, because only you have the capacity to go into your own mind. And only when you develop deep insight into your own mind through observation will you have the capacity to understand how others' minds work. Now, every single relationship in your life depends on how well attuned you are to others. And you can only become attuned to others once you are deeply attuned with yourself, first and foremost, right? So if you understand human psychology, you're going to excel in your own personal development. And because you are able to excel in your own personal development, you'll be able to excel in your social relationships, your business relationships, and your romantic relationships, right? It's all interwoven and connected, and it all starts with your understanding of psychology, your own and others, right? Everything is based in relationships. And healthy relationships are not possible without psychological health. And the only way you can become psychologically healthy is if you understand the nooks and crannies of your own mind from an internalized level. And that way you are not unconscious to the things that, drag you down and make you negative and kind of make you psychologically unstable, where it's only becoming conscious of these things that you can actually be psychologically healthy. Now, if studying academic psychology is reading about the characteristics of water, then studying yourself is jumping in. Think about it that way. Now, I've taken both approaches in trying to gain self-understanding, and the difference is water. Like literally, you could study about water or you could dive into the water, and the difference is water. But don't take my word for it. Try them both and find out for yourself. So now that we've talked about internalizing psychology, learning it by studying yourself, now number 2 is that we have to develop a philosophy. Carl Jung once said, the world is going to ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you. Now, most people study others' philosophies and then they try to imitate it. But once you have an understanding for your own psychology, you start to realize that rigid imitation is the death of critical thinking and is the root of unconsciousness. You'd think that you need some formal accreditation from some top-ranked university to yell on your resume, I'm good, I'm smart, I'm qualified enough. But you really don't. Qualified for whose standards, right? Who is getting to define who you are and what you should strive for? This goes back to the whole psychology thing, asking questions, right? So if somebody or something else is making the decision for you, then they or it is in control of your life. If you're not in control of your own life, then by default, you aren't responsible for it. And if you aren't responsible for it, then you can simply just blame everything and everyone around you for how miserable you are. And that's such a pitiable cycle to be in. And it's like the same people who tell you to take a jab or to get a shiny degree are the same people who probably don't work a very fulfilling job. They don't exercise their bodies, don't eat whole and nutritious foods, and don't rejuvenate their own bodies with proper sleep and recovery and actually treating their bodies with respect. Hoping for a pension and a doctor to save them in this lifetime, and then maybe God to save them in heaven in the thereafter. This is the offloading of self-power and autonomy. And as the existentialist philosopher Kierkegaard would say, the ultimate hopelessness is in this kind of hoping, right? But the simple fact is that you don't need an institution or a religious group or a corporation or a bureaucracy to tell you what to do. You are in control of how you wish to live and how you wish to conduct your own life. And if you consciously choose to offload aspects of your autonomy to another group, then you better have deeply asked yourself why. And it better have been out of conscious choice rather than unconscious obligation. And so you have to become a philosopher of your own life. And you do this by creating your own philosophy for life, right? You think back to what thinkers resonate with you, right? You've watched plenty of movies, plenty of motivational YouTube videos, you've read so many books. Take these nuggets of wisdom and use it as inspiration to start to amalgamate and to start to develop your own philosophy. If you put 5 radically different thinkers together, you can come up with one radically unique philosophy that's uniquely yours. The good news is that nobody is ever truly original. Originality arises out of the creative process, which requires you to amalgamate and refine unique combinations of ideas together. You always have to take what's come before you, and then you have to work with it, and then you create something new out of it. So amalgamate and then craft your own way of seeing life, standing on the shoulders of the greats before you. And so you have to shift from consuming definitions to creating them. You have to shift your mindset and focus on designing your own version of success rather than assimilating into a culture that's like a damaged record playing on repeat. So what does success mean to you? You have to design it. You have to define it. You have to refine it. Once you start understanding psychology and philosophy and creating your own, you start to realize what you really want and what you value. For example, for me, physical health, and this should really just be for everyone, right? You want to build your body and you want to strengthen your immune system, right? You want to cultivate self-empowering ideas. You want to become fit, healthy, and whole. You want to be physically and mentally, materially and spiritually whole. And so when your body's fit, think about it this way, when your body's fit, you reduce we'll call it physical drag coefficient when you're moving through space, right? It just becomes, you can move effortlessly and command your body in space. When your immune system is strong, then the common flu has little effect on you. You don't need to take 2 weeks off because, oh, I was sick, right? When your mind is refined, then these mental viruses that's arguably more dangerous than physical viruses nowadays. When your mind is refined, then these mental viruses do not contaminate you, right? Because your defense systems, I don't even want to call it defense, but your awareness, is so expanded that like the light shines on the darkness, and the darkness has no way of, the darkness is conquered by the light. And so do you see how everything is deeply interconnected? And so this brings me to number 3, which is the last point, which I'm going to keep short because fitness is something that's overcomplicated. And I'm going to end this video off I'm going to try to make it brief and concise but powerful. It's that the third point is that you want to craft your physique and become a physical powerhouse. And so let's finish off with physical health and fitness, right? Getting into fitness can seem overwhelming if you haven't truly like committed yourself to it yet, but it's actually pretty easy. It's only hard because people think they have to make it complicated, and because you have all these gurus and coaches and experts and advice telling you all different things. But I'll give you like literally 5 steps to start to literally be on your way into becoming chiseled and healthy and fit and a physical powerhouse. So stop listening to this, pause the video, and do 5 push-ups. Okay, that took 5 seconds, right? And so now do 5 push-ups every single day. Can you do that? 5 seconds of your day, 5 push-ups. And when these 5 push-ups begin to feel pathetically low, then you do 6. Keep doing 6, right? At some point, when 15 push-ups don't feel enough to you, then go sign up for a gym. Show up for 10 minutes. Maybe do 20 push-ups, do 2 sets of 10 push-ups, and then leave. Then show up for 11 minutes. You get the idea. Sooner than you know it, you're going to be there 4-5 times a week for 1.5 hour sessions. And it's going to feel effortless because you got there not by forcing yourself, as in like a crash diet that people force themselves into, but you became that person who is fit. And you did that by developing a system in your life. And you might take 9 weeks or 9 months to get to this point, but that's not the point at all. The point isn't how many reps or how much time you can discipline to go to the gym. It's the simple act of choosing to take control of your health. It shouldn't feel like a burden. It should be inherently inspiring. I don't train because I feel obligated to. I train because it's fucking fun and I love it. Somewhere along the way you realize that taking care of your body and your mind aren't separate things. And it's the simple decision to wake up in the morning with an intention for the kind of life that you want to lead. And when your mind is healthy, then going to the gym doesn't feel like it's a torture. When your mind is healthy, it becomes effortless because you've developed psychologically in a way where being healthy is the norm for you. The problem with people is that they try to go on diets and they try to lose weight out of the sense of a psychological unhealthiness. They think there's something wrong with them. They think they're unhealthy and they have to change that. But their mind is unhealthy, right? They're not thinking it from the right frame of mind. First, you need to get the mind down, right? Which is the psychology part. To get the mind down, and the physical things come easy, right? And it doesn't even matter what order you do them. Do the physical first, and you realize soon enough you need the mind to be healthy in order to be physically healthy. You do the psychological stuff first, and you realize you need the physical body healthy for the mind to be healthy. It's all connected. It doesn't matter what order you do them, but you just have to get started on either one. And so it's the simple decision to wake up every morning with an intention to lead the kind of life that you want to lead. And it all becomes natural for you because it's yours. It's yours. It's your life. Everything in your life falls into place as part of your own self-design. It's your own lifestyle. You get to design it. So what do you want? The simple act of choosing to take control of your life will make it all come together. And you just have to trust the process. All right. One simple choice makes the difference of your entire life. So whenever you're ready, make the choice. And if you've already made the choice, then it's as inevitable as water flowing down from the mountain into the ocean, right? You just have to trust the process and constantly keep asking yourself questions. All right, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you enjoy talks like these, subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you on board. Give the video a like. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one.